Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. The Browns hit the field for OTAs this week, their first real practices of the offseason. Deshaun Watson threw a couple of days, not the one the media was allowed to watch, and got rave reviews as he recovers from shoulder surgery. OTAs continue for 2 more weeks before mandatory minicamp and then summer break. Here to discuss, as always, is Dave Chudowsky of the WKYC Morning News. How's it going, Chud?
Scott, it's going well as we embark on a holiday weekend. Hope everyone out there is doing well. The unofficial start to summer. How does that sound for you?
It actually sounds great. The weather's been good. The sun's shining as we record this. Getting my golf season underway. So I love the sound of that. The only thing is, and I try not to focus on it, my summer ends earlier than a lot of people's. Because it kind of ends about July 24th when training camp starts. So
Yep,
I got about 2 months. I got to squeeze in a lot of stuff.
yep. I was thinking about you when I asked that, and I broken record here because I know I've brought this up before on this podcast, but I can't tell you how many summers I had where summer didn't really start till June 20th because the Cavs would go all the way to the finals, right?
Yeah.
And then the Browns would start up at the end of July. So basically, you had 1 month of summer, really.
Right.
You know, and believe me, it was a great time following the Cavs and doing all that. Neither of us ever complain about it. We're just letting everyone know it's a little bit different. So, but no, yeah, it's good to have the summer here. I was just the other night took my daughter to the batting cages and it was air conditioned in there and we walked outside. I love that feeling when you're in air conditioning and then you walk out like around 6, 7 o'clock at night and it's like super hot or like
Yeah.
you get that summertime feeling like so, kind of almost like you're in Florida. You get that vacation feeling. I love that feeling.
That's interesting, Chud. That's a good point. And we get that, I'll tell you what, not that anybody cares, but we get that coming out of the Browns media, right? It tends to be cold in there. And if you've been in there all day for training camp or for whatever, and then you walk outside, you get smacked with the warmth, when it hits you. Because,
Yeah,
when you're inside all day, or for most of the day or whatever, doing your writing, you kind of forget what it's like outside.
yeah, and it stays light out late.
Yep, yep.
And that only gets better here as we get closer to the official start of summer in June. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about your week in Berea and OTAs. And as you said at the top, I thought about you because I was sitting there when they came out with the schedule, and the day that the media gets to watch, Deshaun Watson does not throw. And I just sat there and I thought to myself, now that makes no sense. I mean, they're going to go every other day, at least give the media one of the days that he's going to throw, right?
You would think, Chud, you know, my guess is that, well, I'll say this for the Browns. They always have us out, or in recent memory, for the second day of OTAs. So that was not a change. I will say that we requested to be out there the first day because we figured Watson would throw on the first day, and there's a chance he wouldn't throw the second day. Um, and I don't know if Kevin Stefanski did a whole lot of planning to keep Watson away from the media's eyes on Tuesday, and then he threw again Thursday, and we weren't out there either of those 2 days. But I wouldn't put it past the organization saying, hey, this is his first real practice. Let's do it without everybody watching, without everybody video, taping every throw he makes. Give him 1 week of where, the team put out a couple throws, but, I'm sure they could pick whatever throws they wanted. So I wouldn't be stunned if that went into the thinking of why reporters weren't allowed out there or weren't out there the days he threw this week. Now, we've been told that we'll be out there when he throws next week. So we don't know what day that is yet, if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. But I do expect to see him throw next week. So I guess it's just a week delayed. But it was frustrating from a media standpoint because that's the story of the offseason, right? Is how Watson's recovering from the shoulder surgery. And you can hear everybody say how he looks like himself and how great he's doing. I want to see it for myself, right? And we want to be able to take video and get the video out there to the fans so they can get a better view of it and see, people make fun of it, but see what the zip is on the ball, see what the velocity is. How many throws is he able to make, right? Is he taking normal reps? All those things we'll get a better answer for next week. Now, again, there's a long way to the season, right? Stefanski said he's going to ramp up from minicamp, that it won't be day on, day off in minicamp, and especially when you get to training camp. So there's a long way to go in this, but this is one of those key milestones, just like when he started throwing in mid-March, right? That was a key milestone in his recovery from surgery. And the OTAs, throwing in practices, is the next step. And I feel like we were shortchanged by not being out there this week. And, and so hopefully that gets rectified next week.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Why is it important for you guys to see it? You pretty much answered all that. But if we want to be fair to the Browns, if they have a process of how they want to get him back, if this is the way they want to handle it and they don't want all that video out there in the Twitterverse, or I'm sorry, Xverse and social media world, it is, if it's part of their plan, maybe you could see why they feel it's important to do it the way they did it.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I would say that, what's the difference in 1 week, right? I would say that they put out video, so it's not like they were super scared of any video of him throwing, right? They put out, I don't know, about 5 or 6 passes that he threw maybe over the Tuesday and Thursday practices. It just feels like they're managing whatever. They're managing the news, they're managing what's out there, and I guess that's their prerogative. NFL, the media rules, they advocate for reporters being allowed out on the first day of OTAs, and we weren't. It's not like the Browns broke any rule, but that's the preference. And we weren't out there for the first day. So, it wasn't ideal from our situation, And then everybody talks about, Stefanski said he looks like himself. Naheem Hines raved about him, Za'Darius Smith, Martin Emerson Jr. So, people are talking about how good he looks. So if he looks that good, then we would have said the same thing. And we would have had more video of it, and you'd have all these reporters talking about how good he looked, right? So I'm not sure it's consistent from that standpoint. It could just be that, they do the same thing for the start of the offseason program. We're usually out there the second day. So, I think there's a comfort level with Kevin Stefanski. He wants to get 1 day under his belt, right, under the team's belt, and then open it up to us. So, that's just the way it is. But, it's and I don't think I can emphasize this enough, Judd. This is the story of the offseason, and we're going to chronicle it like crazy. And it's, I plan to watch, if I can, every, and there's 89 other guys out there, or, not everybody's there, but, there's 89 other guys on the roster, but I'll probably try to watch every throw that he makes, right? Just to get a feel for the velocity, the arm angles. Is he, can you tell if he's feeling any pain after a throw, right? Does he look normal? All those things that you do when somebody's coming back from injury. You do the same thing when Nick Chubb comes back to practice. It'll be, okay, how's he running? How's he cutting? And, I think it's a little easier with passing, the quarterback's throws. And we did it last year when Watson had the rotator cuff strain, right? Is he going to play? And you're trying to watch and you're telling, okay, does it look like he's throwing it well enough? And it's an inexact science, but that's something you have to do when you try to get a sense of it. And it's not just media who do that, right? The coaches do it, the players do that. That's so important to see how his arm recovers from a rare injury for a quarterback to have, from a surgery that's, yes, it's a broken bone, but there's other stuff going on in your shoulder, right? So it's just a big deal. And that's why I'm making a big deal about it.
Yeah, no, you make good points here. And if they're putting video out of them, that's an excellent point by you right there. And, it makes you wonder, are they saying he's 100%, Scott?
That's a great question. Kevin Stefanski did not use those words. He said, looks like himself.
Okay. Right.
Naheem Hines said that he's been rehabbing with Watson. He has rehab with Watson in LA in this offseason. And that you on some throws you don't even notice that he's coming off a surgery, right? You can't even tell that he's coming off surgery. I'm getting the quote up right now. He's still working through his rehab, but sometimes doesn't feel like it. I've caught some passion from him. They have zip on it. So, yeah, I mean, people are talking really positively about the recovery. I'm going to read the Stefanski quote. Looked like himself to me. I've been able to watch him the last couple of weeks now that we've gotten into phase 2 of the offseason program. So I've seen him throw. He's making great progress, and we'll continue to just follow the medical team on this. But he looks like himself. So, I'm sure he's not throwing as obviously if he's every other day, then he's not on a normal routine. He's not completely 100%. But, Watson talked in April about how he's able to throw full strength. And it felt the same way. He was throwing 40 yards. So I think these are all from a coverage aspect of it. From just the Watson recovery standpoint, I think this is all really positive news. The fact that he felt like he was throwing at full strength, about a month after starting to throw, that he could throw it 40 yards downfield, that he can even throw every other day, that he looks like himself. Those are all really positive signs because it was a huge question mark. You didn't know for sure he'd come back from this the same way. And it feels like he's on or ahead of schedule and doing everything he needs to be to where he needs to be week 1 when they open against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I guess my question I was leading up to is why can't he throw more than every other day? I mean, why couldn't he throw every day of these OTAs? I mean, if you haven't played a full season in 3 years or more than that, right? I mean,
2020, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just, if he's 100%, I would just wonder if anyone's 100%, you should be able to go every day. I mean, so that's why I'm wondering if maybe they don't feel he's all the way back yet because you got to monitor how much work he puts in.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah. I don't think they would put the shoulder at 100%. They can say maybe he's throwing the same as he used to. And they might even stop short of that, right? Looks like himself is a little vague.
Yeah.
That's why I'm interested to talk to Watson, and I don't know when that's going to happen. Right? How does it feel? Right? Does he feel he's back to normal? I mean, he would know better than anybody. So obviously they're still being careful with him. But I should say this. When we talked to him in April, he said that they're members of his team, and I think he focused on the actual surgeon, but maybe it's just more general than that. Members of his team, right? His recovery team, his training team, his medical team, that wanted him to wait until training camp. So the fact that he's throwing every other day in OTAs, which is 2 months ahead of training camp, I think that's a really positive sign, right?
Yeah,
so I think they're just being
true.
Yeah, I think they're being careful not to ramp it up too quickly. But if he wants him throwing every day in minicamp, which starts June 11th for 3 days, even if it's not the normal volume, if he's able to throw every day, that's another hugely positive sign. It feels like a reliever, right? When they're in baseball, they go down and they do these rehab assignments. Like, okay, when can he finally throw back-to-back days? So if he's able to do that in June, which is 5 or 6 weeks before training camp, then I think there's reason to believe that when he gets to training camp, he'll be on a normal schedule. Now, that doesn't mean he won't ever take a day off. It doesn't mean he might not sit out an extra drill here or there. But he'll be so much further along and on pace to be where he needs to be, whenever that is, right? Like, if he's on his absolute normal routine, August 15th, I think that's probably plenty good enough, right? Because he's going to have a number of throwing reps in by then.
Yeah, because think about this. I mean, a lot of veterans don't even come to OTAs. I mean, you didn't have a full house here at this one, right?
No, and I want to go over that. You would expect quarterbacks to, but not always, right? I know Tua, I think in Miami he at least missed one. I know he's like a Nick Saban golf thing, but I don't know if he came back after that. So it's not guaranteed. Like, I don't think Lamar went to, they had the contract issues, but I don't think he was at OTAs last year with Baltimore, if I'm correct. So, yeah, you don't have to be here. And it's all about, it's all about the recovery in the shoulder. And like I said, all reports are positive. I just want to see it for myself up close and personal.
And when you were there up close and personal, even though he wasn't throwing, he was still going through plays, correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and you kind of I actually got nervous for a second because we were told he wasn't going to throw, and I get out on the field and he's lined up under center, but they're just doing like the installation of plays. So they get everybody lined up. He takes the snap, drops back, and then doesn't make the throw. And then it happened throughout practice. Like, so they would break up individual drills. He would stand behind Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley and do the footwork and then kind of do the motion, but hang onto the ball. And then, so I'm thinking, okay, we're for sure know he's not going to throw. And then I look up later and he's under center and they're doing a team drill. I'm like, oh my gosh, is he going to throw? But he was just doing the whole thing. They were installing plays, going through the footwork, faking the play action, going through the motion. So just, and it's, they use the term mental rep and it, seems kind of silly sometimes, but it is like you're going through it like he's processing the play. He's going through his progressions. You're just not delivering the ball. And, Kevin Stefanski had a pretty good quote about just the value to that there is significant value in that. And when you're talking about learning plays, period, but especially this year, learning new plays, learning, a quote unquote new system under coordinator Ken Dorsey, all those things matter. And you're trying to stack up as many reps as possible. And that's one way to get Watson some reps.
And you know how important mental reps are, Scott. I mean, before you do the pod, I know you probably practice, hey, how am I going to open this show? You got to do your mental reps before you do it for real.
Yeah, I don't want to say how the sausage is made, Chud, but I actually write it down. This part we're improvising, but I actually write down the opening because I'd be stepping all over myself. I'm not a TV professional like yourself.
Oh, well, we write things down too. So, but no, you're right. That's funny. You write that down. We just went inside the game, inside the numbers. So, Jameis Winston, did you get a chance to watch him?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm glad you brought that up. I had a little made myself a note. Yeah, it was weird because I told somebody else I was spending so much time focusing on Watson not practicing and some of the stuff that he was doing that didn't feel like I watched. Maybe concentrate on some of the other stuff. And you're looking around and there's two different fields going on. So I can't. If you ask me about some random player, I might not have a great answer. But I was watching the quarterbacks. I stood behind Winston for at least one drill. The ball comes out of his hand, man. I'm telling you, the big dude. The ball comes out of his hand. We talk so much about the whole Flacco-Winston decision, and I'm sure we will. It might be relevant at some point during the season, but I am intrigued by Jameis Winston, right? Former overall #1 pick. Big dude, big arm, can move a little bit, has a personality. I know he's got some stuff in his past, and I'm looking forward to talking to him just in general. But a lot of personality. He introduced himself to all the reporters. We didn't interview him. Introduced himself, said just say hi when you see him. You can feel the energy around him. And yeah, so I thought he made a good first impression.
Yeah, it seemed like from the interview we heard before, this is a guy that you're probably going to enjoy interviewing. I almost feel like, and I don't want to, I got to be careful how I say this because I'm not trying to knock Watson, but I almost feel like you would enjoy interviewing Winston on a weekly basis over Watson.
Oh, I think that's fair to say. Yeah. I mean, Watson's gone, and I don't want to phrase it wrong either. Everything involved in the Watson experience over the last 3 or 4 years has certainly affected his interactions with the media. And Winston feels pretty open book, willing to talk, funny. I mean, we've seen some of the just kind of goofball stuff he's done. He was at the PGA Championship in Valhalla, and there's video of him like just talking to random dudes. So yeah, he's a trip.
Yeah. All right, so you want to just go over who wasn't there, and I don't think it really means much, but maybe it does. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I don't think it means much, but I do think it's worth noting, right? So here's some big names that weren't there, right? And again, this is all voluntary until we get to mandatory minicamp in June. All these practices are voluntary, so guys can come in and out. Could be there one day, not the next day. Be there 1 week, not the next week, right? Who knows what people have going on? They could have graduations, they could have weddings, right? Like you just there's a lot of stuff that people have. This is the NFL players' offseason. So as much as coaches want them to be there, as much as fans want, their best players to be there every day, they don't have to be, and that's kind of the way it works. So some guys that weren't there, Joel Bitonio, who's kind of abstained from practicing in OTAs the last few years. I think part of it is, J.C. Tretter, the former NFLPA president, is a good friend of his. They played next to each other, center and left guard forever. And Tretter was, the 1 year he wanted everybody, not all the players, not to go to OTAs. So I think that was part of it. Kind of started it for Bitonio skipping. I also think he's managing his body. He was in the building, so he's going, he's attending meetings. He just didn't practice. And Wyatt Teller made an interesting reference when he was talking about Joel that, sometimes you get these rookies and they're a little overzealous, and all of a sudden you're doing a normal drill and a guy takes it too hard and you get rolled into, or, you get hit. And Joel just doesn't need to risk that at 32 years old, right? So I think he's just being careful. Myles Garrett wasn't there. I know he's been at part of the offseason program, but he was not there when we were out there Wednesday. I'm only talking about when we were out there Wednesday. Now, I think if he'd been there either of the other 2 days this week, the Browns would have had that on video. So I'm assuming he wasn't there this week at all. So Myles Garrett, a bunch of D linemen, actually. Dalvin Tomlinson wasn't there. Alex Wright wasn't there. We did see Quentin Jefferson, one of the offseason free agent signings, wasn't there. Now, Obo Okoronkwo was, and we'll talk about injuries a little bit, but he practiced. He was hurt at the end of last year. He had I think it was a torn pec, but he came back at the end of the season, so he was there practicing. Za'Darius Smith was practicing, talked to the media. We could talk about that a little bit. But the other notable guys to me were Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku. They were also not there.
All right, Scott, I'm going to introduce a new segment that I just thought of here in the last minute. It's called 4 Downs with Petrak during OTAs.
Okay.
And I'm going to, I'm sure you can guess 4 downs means 4 topics. And
yeah, I put that together, Chud.
There you go. It's the mental reps. They're helping you out. So we're going to go 4 downs with Petrak. You got a minute on each one. The countdown clock will start, and we're going to throw 4 things at you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First down, Nyheim Hines. He expects to be ready at the start of training camp, and you guys got to talk to him. What do you think about Nyheim Hines? Yeah,
I'm glad you brought him up, Chud, because I talked to him about myself too after the group did. He said early training camp. So, whether it's right day one or a weekend, the goal is to be ready week 1. I really liked him as a player when he was with the Colts. I thought Buffalo made a great addition when they got him. And he didn't play last year. Tore his ACL, freak accident, was filling up a jet ski gas, was getting gas on jet ski. His buddy hits him with a jet ski. Like, comes over, he's just waiting in line to get gas, gets hit, tears his ACL. Like, it's really just a freak thing. He was really good talking about it. And I haven't written the story yet, but that'll be on Brown Zone within the next week at the latest. But really good talking about the injury, talking about the recovery, talking about how people used to ask him for tickets and then nobody calls them anymore. And I said, well, so is your circle a lot tighter? And he said, it's tighter than a period. So he's got some good lines. He's a good dude to talk to. And the reason he's here, in his opinion, Ken Dorsey was with him in Buffalo, and Bubba Ventrone was with him in Indy. And he said, I know that they stood on the table for me. So he feels a comfort level there. thinks he can have a huge impact is a running back, receiver, and returner. So assuming that he's healthy coming off the knee, and he says he has no doubt that he will be, I think he's a great addition for this offense.
All right. Second down. The defense. Did you talk to Martin Emerson Jr.? I think I saw you tweet about that, saying something they need to get better in the red zone this year.
Yeah, and I think we're going to develop this theme as we get going here, Chud, is when I say we, I mean the media talking to the Browns over the next, whatever, probably until week 1 even. As good as the defense was last year, there's a feeling that it can be a lot better. And there's areas that bear it out, right? We know that the defense was not nearly as good on the road last year as it was at home, right? We talked about that. It showed up again in the playoff game, obviously. So that was a big deal. Martin Emerson mentioned the red zone. They need to be better in the red zone. And you're talking field goals instead of touchdowns, what a difference that makes. So that was his focus. I'm anxious or eager to talk to Jim Schwartz and see where his focus is, where he thinks they can make the biggest strides. But as good as they were last year, right? And they were number 1 in passing yardage, number 1 on third down, number 1 in overall yardage. And third down is key, right? But there were some other metrics where they weren't. Points, they weren't at the top, right? Baltimore had a really good defense. So this defense can get better, and they made a couple additions. Jordan Hicks, Mike Hall Jr., Quentin Jefferson. And just being comfortable in year 2 of Schwartz's system, right? They really feel like that defense can take a step despite how good it was last year.
All right, not bad. We're looking at more like a minute 15 4 downs.
Yeah, I forgot. Did you give me a time limit? I blew right past that time limit.
No, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. You're just a little bit over.
Yeah.
Third down. I don't know if you're making any changes heading into training camp. And what year is this now for you?
21.
21. I don't know if you're making any changes, but apparently Za'Darius Smith is.
Yeah, 21, I didn't even think about that. That's my lucky number, Chud. So maybe this will be a big year.
21 is?
Yeah, it's my softball jersey number, yeah.
That's one of my numbers.
Well, there you go. Who knew, Chud?
How about that? I never knew that.
It's a little simpatico. You know what? Well, I need to get a haircut, but that's got nothing to do with year 21. And I've had the same haircut since I was about 14, so I don't think that's changing. Trying to lose a few pounds, but that's it. Maybe right shorter, right faster, but those are my biggest changes. But yeah, Za'Darius Smith, fresh haircut, got rid of the dreadlocks that he's had since his days at Kentucky, at least. I don't know if it went back to high school. Had a tight haircut. And then talked about coming back, right? He could have gone elsewhere in free agency, said he had offers, mentioned Miami and Washington specifically, but the Browns gave him a 2-year deal for $23 million. He gets to come back for a good defense, and kind of picking up on that last theme, said there's unfinished business. And, he wants to take these next steps with this team that they weren't able to accomplish last year in the playoffs.
All right, and fourth down, Wyatt Teller talked about Zach Zinter.
Yeah, likes the first impression, good from the rookie. Likes the fact that he came back from the broken leg, and so you can't really tell. He's not complaining about it. So he likes his energy, and that's one of the things about like Bitonio not being there. Michael Dunn was getting the starting reps, the first team reps at left guard without Bitonio there. But a guy like Zinter will get more reps, will get more quality reps. And I do think that is a benefit from some of the veterans staying away.
Wow, that was quick.
I tried to make up there.
That was about 30 seconds.
Yeah, see?
There you made up 2 downs right there in fourth down. Well done. Well, that's all I got. You tell me what I missed.
All right, I'm going to go through my notes here. I'll say Jerry Jeudy was there, the receiver, right? The biggest offseason acquisition. Looked active, made some catches. There was one on the sideline. I couldn't tell if he got the second foot in or not. He should have. He had time. I would have had to go to replay to see, but made some catches, several catches, looked active. Buki Watson, the rookie 6-round linebacker, had an interception to end practice, so that was a notable play. And then just some injuries. Tackle, right? All 3 top tackles were hurt last year. It finished the season on IR. They all had knee surgery. DeJuan Jones practiced, was there on the right side at right tackle. Jed Wills did not practice, but is close at left tackle. I would expect we see him before the break for summer, whether that's OTAs or minicamp. We won't see Jack Conklin until training camp. I don't know if it'll be day one of training camp, but Kevin Stefanski says they're still all doing really well, still all on schedule. So Conklin's the third of those guys as far as coming back, which makes sense. He had an ACL, the other guys had MCLs. We talked about Hines coming back, and then Nick Chubb, right? Oh, I mentioned Obo Okoronkwo was back practicing, so that was good. So was Maurice Hurst. He had, I think both those guys had the torn pec, so they're both back practicing. No Nick Chubb yet. That's not a surprise. You know, we're not going to see him till training camp, and then it's a question of when do we see him during training camp, right? Is it right away? How deep into is it? You know, I kind of expect him to start training camp on the physically unable to perform list. I think week one is obviously still in doubt with Chubb. You know, but that's all to be expected. It was such a serious injury. He already had the multiple surgeries. But that's where we stand from an injury standpoint. And I just thought that was the last important thing I wanted to say.
Yeah, no, those are all great nuggets, and you summed it up pretty well there. I'll tell you, if anyone who wants to follow the Browns, definitely listening to this, they are caught up, no question about OTAs. And so let everyone know where we go next. Another week of OTAs next week, right?
Yeah, we're at OTAs, so it's 3 more practices next week. I think they go 3-3-4 because they get 10 OTA practices over 3 weeks. So we'll be out there one of the days. I don't know yet if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Expect to see Watson throw. So yeah, it's just continuing these practices. Like I said, there's kind of the first real practices of the offseason. The offense can go against the defense in some drills. There are no contact drills, but they did full speed 7-on-7, full speed red zone 7-on-7. So yeah, so it's fun to be back out there watching practices, you know. And we'll get this for the next 3 weeks because you got 2 more weeks of OTAs and then the 3 days of mini camp, which will be out there every day. So yeah, it's gearing up, and then we take that summer break.
We're in prime softball and golf season.
Woo. You're right. Prime softball, golf, cookout, all of it. Right up my alley, Chud.
Mulching.
I did that already.
Guess how many bags of mulch I have bought so far?
All right. Well,
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I have a tiny yard, and I bought 16, so I'm going to put you at about 30.
165.
All right. Well, I would have lost on prices right there. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Well, now I feel good that I only had to buy 16.
Yeah, and I recommend anyone mulching. You know, I've done it different ways. I've had, you know, the piles delivered, yards of mulch delivered.
Right.
I get the bags. The best way to go, in my experience, is to get to Home Depot when it's on sale, and you get 5 bags for $10. So comes out to $2 a bag. Because if you don't, it's close to $4 a bag. It's like $3.80 or $3.60 or something.
Yeah, I don't even remember, but I feel like I paid way more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good. Well, when you're buying 160 bags,
yeah, no kidding.
You want to find the best deal possible.
Holy man, that is a good tip.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, we bring more to the listener, Scott, than just, you know, the best Browns coverage around. We're gonna help you with your golf game, your mulching.
That's true. You know what? Now that you said, I'm gonna give a little quick shameless plug. We do a golf preview section every season, and I wrote a bunch of stories for it, so people can chroniclet.com, or I tweeted some of the stories, so you could go to my X account, you could see some of the stories. But I wrote one about just how the business of golf is booming. It's harder to get tee times, costs are up, just because since COVID, golf has been more popular than ever, and it's not stopping. It's continuing to go, even with, you know, the world back opened up. You could do, you know, back in the day, you could only play golf at the beginning of COVID. It's still crazy popular. More young people are playing it. So I have a story about that. I went to a taping of Pin Shot. They were in Lorain County at Greyhawk. So I wrote a story. I talked to Jimmy Hanlon, wrote a story about the pressure of being on Pin Shot. And then I won't spoil it, but Chud, keep an eye on Pin Shot when it airs, because somebody on this podcast hit a couple of golf shots.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, it'd be good to see that.
Yeah.
I think everyone can guess who that is.
I probably look like a Yahoo because I was not expecting to play, and I had like a bucket hat on, an untucked shirt, and no golf shoes. But Jimmy called me up. So yeah, I should be on there in a couple golf shots.
Love Jimmy. I've done
He's great.
back when I was doing sports, I did a lot of segments with him.
Yep.
He's really, really good, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right.
So there you
Enjoy
go.
the holiday weekend. That's it for me, buddy.
You too. Thanks, Chud. We'll talk again next week after another OTAs practice. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks a lot.